You've got questions, and we've got answers. Here on Legendary Sickos, a special episode, a mailbag episode where myself, Erik Beimfohr, and Pat Kerrane are going to dive into all the questions and feedback and ideas that you yourselves wanted to talk about here on Legendary Sickos, a best ball mailbag. All right, Pat, for the first time in maybe since the inception of this show, we actually have a hard out, so we can't talk for 4 hours. The people may be a little disappointed, but I just wanted to let them know. I mean, they'll see it when they see the video for the first time that it's only going to be, not a 4-hour marathon episode.
And it's the first time we're doing a mailbag, too.
And it's, yeah, exactly. So, when it's not the things that we specifically want to talk about, we're going to cut it off.
We're tight. Time's tight.
Yeah. Guys, I'm really busy on this Friday. I run a best ball company for a living. It's really hectic on Friday afternoons, let me tell you. So we will be diving through. We both appreciate all the questions that we put out the bat signal for questions in our Discords and our communities yesterday, and we appreciate all those. We'll see. Hopefully, if this goes well, we can do some more of these. 1 or 2 more of these. Space them out throughout the summer. Things will change. You guys will have new questions. But we're going to try to hit as many of those questions as we can here today. So I need to make sure to get my housekeeping out of the way quickly. If you've not watched this before, if you have no idea what the heck Spike Week is or Legendary Upside is, it's a fun little combo show that we do together because we've kind of put together a little a promo, a package, if you will, that I think works really, really well for folks playing best ball. At Spike Week, we've built some pretty powerful best ball tools, specifically our Draft Hacker and Draft IQ, that I think if you just try to use them, I won't give the whole sales pitch. I believe that you'll love drafting best ball teams with these tools. But Pat also has epic content, advice, some tools of his own, and everything over at legendaryupside.com that if you subscribe to Leg Up, you can get 40% off of Spike Week. So there's tons of other stuff. We got free drafters tickets when you sign up for Spike Week. Pat's got free money on Underdog. There's tons of different stuff. Go to legendaryupside.com and sign up over there, and then come on over to Spike Week. Get your 40% off with promo code Leg Up. I think that's the earliest I've ever actually done it. Usually it's about 2.5 hours in when we get to that read. So I'm proud that we got to it. Anything that you got before we dive into some of these questions?
I would just note we launched FFPC rankings on the site this past week. We are working to get drafters rankings up in the next couple of weeks as well. DK, Underdog, FFPC now updating every day on Legendary Upside. Head over and over to legendaryupside.com/perks and details on how you get a $50 Underdog credit with a yearly subscription. The details are, give me your Underdog username. There's a form that you fill out on that page. That's the details.
That's the exact same for me. I'm like, you can get your free drafters ticket. All you got to do, like you said, give me some details. And I'm like, just DM me your username, please.
Just tell me your username.
That's it. Like, I may not even respond. You'll get your money. Don't worry. We got you. But let's go ahead and dive into some of these questions. There's a lot of good ones. We will get to as many as we can here over the course of the next hour and a half or so. I actually wanted to start with something. We got a couple. I did at least got a couple of questions along this, and I think it stemmed from people who are just curious about this, but also I believe you were quoted this past week about being in like 4.5 million slow drafts at once, somewhere in that ballpark, and there were a couple different questions along these lines. Billy Jones asked, I'd love to hear just a conversation on draft life balance. And then there was a question here from our good friend Tikasaurus, who says a follow-up to that was Kerrane just had a baby. And so has he become a slow draft bro because of that? And he specifically has a baby himself coming in September, and he's always drafted fast drafts. So just kind of a conversation around draft life balance and how we handle, right? Like, it does take a lot of time to draft a lot of teams, and we both kind of believe in the idea of volume drafting. So how do you specifically, still live a life, keep your sanity, run a content site and all that while drafting hundreds or thousands of teams over the course of the year?
Yeah, so last year I got a lot of volume down, and it was almost all Well, I shouldn't say almost all fast draft. I mean, but the vast majority of it was fast drafts. I did like max enter several. Let's see. If I did 1,000 drafts last year, which is roughly what I did, probably 700 were fast, something like that. But I did, yeah, because I max entered a couple. Maybe it was more like 600. So vast majority was overstating.
Does this include like pre-draft? Does this include pre-draft, like big board and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it would include. But big board was entirely fast. I don't think I did any slow big board drafts. I can't handle when the clock goes down, like when the timer. It only works for me, and I don't slow draft on DraftKings at all. Like not a single of one of my DraftKings drafts was. So all the like literally, and I didn't do as much volume on DraftKings, but I probably, did at least probably 200 drafts. So those like 200 were all fast, and then, I'd probably slow maxed 2 of the tournaments on Underdog. I know I maxed a slow puppy, and I probably did puppies slow. But it does get taxing to have that many slow drafts going. The best bet, I think. So you can do like the star method. You need some way of keeping track of what you're trying to accomplish. I'm not like good enough at just taking notes, but like if I was, I would take the notes. I've done stuff where I name the teams. Like I name the teams. I had Mastiffs. There's some Mastiff slows, and I would name the team like Take Picket, and then I'd be like, why is this team? It's actually nice because you're like, why is this team 11th? And you're like, oh, it's called Take Picket. That's why. there's no you don't even got to click in. You know what happened. So there's that you can tell yourself a little note about what you're trying to accomplish in the team name. That's like one little hack.
I'll just add super quickly. If you do subscribe to Spike Week, I don't leverage this enough, partially because I don't really do slow drafts, which we'll get to. We do have a notes feature in there. I don't think
nice.
It is, but it is easy to forget. It's not, there's so much, right? There's so many different things that and it doesn't pop off the screen, right? You have to click in. It doesn't pop off the screen to you like the name title does. So just another little thing if you want. I think maybe combining the two things could help.
Yeah, in some way find the ability to sort of like track what the point of this team was, because that to me is like, I walk away, I do stuff, I come back, and it's like, how do I get back to where I was when in a fast draft? And in that way, it can be difficult to just draft as well. But I would say the two things: starring the player, having an overlay so you see the correlations that you're trying to do. Those are big. And then the team name hack. The other thing that I do is I set alarms, so I get like all the drafts done that I want to get done, even if I'm still on the clock. But I get everything to like a certain point, so that I'm like, all right, for 4 hours I don't have to worry about this. I'm not like checking the phone. So I set alarm for like 4 hours from now, 6 hours from now, whatever it is, and then I also turn off notifications on the Underdog app. You cannot have this thing pinging you that you're on the clock when you're on slow drafts. It is a nightmare. So those are if you're trying to enter anything, I would say, honestly, I do all this stuff when I'm in 20. Like I can't, but anything I would say over like 20 slow drafts, I would turn notifications off and start setting alarms so that you're not constantly checking the app, which obviously, if your point is to try to save time and kind of batch picks, but you're still in fast draft mode where you kind of just like check the app and maybe I'll fire one off, then I think you kind of need to put a couple things in place to sort of switch over to slow draft. And I want to get more fast draft volume in. I haven't done a ton of fast drafts over the last couple of weeks. My hope is that I find some time and I would like to still be close to half and half this year. It's just, it has been harder to find the time with having a baby, as you might imagine.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. I can't understand because I have not gone through it, but I can certainly imagine how it goes. What about like even more so than just getting the volume in and figuring out how to do that in a sane way? What about like, I mean, this is your life, right? Creating fantasy football content, doing shows every single day, writing every single day, adjusting rankings every single day, while also drafting hundreds or thousands of teams over the course of the summer. How do you like this draft life balance, but also while running a content site, what do you kind of do to make sure that you're not losing absolutely losing your mind? Because especially like right now, right, it's still only May, man. We got we are in the first leg of the marathon here to get to the season, and that's just to get to the season, not even to make it through the season. So how do you kind of balance all of that with like of course you have a baby, but significant other and family and other hobbies and keeping your brain sharp also, right? So that you're not just like trudging through all these drafts and all this content.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're interested in work-life balance, I would not suggest starting a site and having a baby. Don't do that. You're not.
I'll take that tip. I'll take that. I'm going to take that to my wife after we get done here.
Yeah, it's hard. It makes it harder. Just in my experience. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, with a baby, you're kind of like, you're working more on an intermittently, but like I'm finding myself not as like hyper productive as I was. I'm kind of like the ADD hyper focus type of productivity where like, I put on music and I just like zone in, and it took me like 30 years, but I realized like, oh, this is kind of like, if I harness this in just the right ways, and to me it's music, it's like I can like get in the zone. But it's like I really work best when I have like 4 or 5 uninterrupted hours, which is not, I don't obviously have that now. So except when we do a pod. So the biggest thing for me is like, at this point, I'm now just like working in like more frequent chunks, but the chunks are more frequent than I would like to be honest. It's just like, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that this is like particularly, if you're in this exact situation, I guess email me at legendaryupside@gmail.com. But my thing is, I think the slow drafts can help. Another thing I'll do is like, if I find a window of time that I have for fast drafts, like this is more last year, but I would fire off like 3. Like, let me just and like, as this one's ending, I'm going to throw up another one. I've never been really a subscriber to the barbell method because it didn't fit with my life. I'm just not going to, you're telling me I don't draft in like late May or June. Like I need to get volume
versus Life EV versus like practical game,
Yeah. And it's sort of like the jury is out on that as well. Like how much it even helps. So to me, it's like when you have time to draft,
it doesn't,
but also like,
it's fine. It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. And if you get like 140 teams in Best Ball Mania and you wanted 150, or you wanted 100 and you got 90, like no one's going to come, like you're not going to get issued a citation. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. Like do it. Like don't stress yourself out. I didn't even
get my cactus from maxing it anyway. So there wasn't even a cacti at the end of the tunnel. So it's fine if you only got 145 in there.
I had my, when I moved from Manhattan to Brooklyn, I didn't update the underdog address. It's all the same. All the same.
Somebody got a cactus delivered.
There's a cactus. No, it's worse than that because we couldn't get packages, because it's just like we couldn't get in the building. So it's across the street. There's like one of those stores where they just like your packages go. So there's just a cactus sitting in a box in
That's great.
Chinatown.
That is great. So I was gonna add like the slow. It's so interesting. I actually find the like fast draft, slow draft, like life balance stuff like super fascinating. Probably because I'm definitely very much like you. Like I kind of like live my life in batches where like I'm definitely I'm very easily distracted. My mind is always moving around. Like even when I sit and focus on like a task for work, like writing an article. The process of writing and researching the article will turn my brain into a bunch of like it'll spawn new ideas for articles or an idea I want to try in a draft, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to finish this article, I should try it first, and then like so like I'm very I can be very led away from the specific task that I was trying to accomplish originally, and so I mean. That can be good because you can learn things and I'm adaptable, but it can also
it's a good sign for your analysis,
Yes.
You're like
I'm being as thoughtful as I can about the analysis. And I think because the goal is not to like, I have to write an article today, right? Which is a nice perk, I guess, of running your
And I already know everything, so this will be easy.
Right, exactly. Like when I sit down to write the article, I don't actually really know how it's going to turn out, and it may turn into something totally separate. That happens to me
Right.
a lot. But to the like work life / draft life balance, it can have some issues. I specifically am really, really, really focused. And I said, this is probably a personal flaw where I can get a little bogged down and a little drained from thinking about this one singular thing, like my entire life, basically. Like, and I think this can happen if it's just your hobby. Like, you're not doing DFS content, you're not doing best ball content, you're not writing about it or doing shows. It's fun. And like, you're thinking about it all, like you just do a draft and things stick in your head. Like, oh, that was interesting that happened. Or, oh, that guy fell. Or, and it just like the next thing you know, your whole day, your brain becomes consumed with it. So I set aside, like I said, I kind of try to batch my life a little bit where I set aside time to specifically accomplish it. And what I've learned about myself is I don't try to necessarily plan out what I'm going to accomplish during that batch. I kind of sit down and assess. We all have like, lists of things that we need to do and stuff. But I try to sit down and be like, what do I feel like I would feel the best about accomplishing right now? And like set aside time to do that. And sometimes it's just, I need to draft like 5 fucking teams.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's sitting down and writing. Sometimes it's sitting and researching. Sometimes it's listening to a show that you did. And maybe I am multitasking during that, but like it's sitting down and being
you
like,
should be drafting if you're listening to my stuff. Get a draft in at least.
But that's, I can put a legendary upside pod on and pull up, sit here at my desk and pull up some drafts and do that. But it changes every day. But what am I going to feel like when I go to sleep later, what am I going to be like? I'm happy with what I accomplished today. But I also have to know, like I am trying to get, I got like 800, I think, drafts in last year. And I found for me, like I want to get more volume in, but I found myself really having stretches where I was like, man, I don't even really feel like drafting because I just did, 14 yesterday, and I did a show and I wrote an article and I updated rankings, and I'm like, I would like to not think about this for a little bit. And so like I said, like kind of like you were talking about slow draft batching, I find myself batching things from like a draft perspective. Like overall, I prefer to do fast drafts. I think that there's an inherent edge in fast drafting. There are in slows too. We don't need to get into that space, but I physically cannot take the slow draft hell. Like it's just a personal trait of mine. Like being in even like 40 slows at once is just something that I will find myself thinking about it all the time, even if I shut notifications off and stuff. But to that point, I do that as well. Like in life, actually, where I'm like, I don't want to see the Slack messages. I don't want to see the Discord DMs. I don't want to see the Twitter notifications. I don't want to see the Underdog notifications. And we go on Do Not Disturb. And I'm sorry, people. Like, this is my time. Me and my wife are going to go watch a movie. Or this is like specifically later this afternoon. Like, why we have a hard stop here is because we're going to go enjoy. She's getting off work early. We're going to go. It's nice outside. We're going to go do something. And I'm like, sorry, guys. Support messages tomorrow. Like drafts tomorrow. Like, it's over. But I find similar to things I've learned about myself with drafting in life as well, being intentional about like these specific things. And like really, like when I go into a draft, I'm not just like necessarily always just like letting the draft flow to me, right? We have all these ideas. I want to try things and be intentional about my strategies. I do that in the life part of this question as well, where I really want to be intentional about like keeping my sanity. Honestly, that's what it's doing. And also like, this isn't everything. It's my career. It's my life. And I think we're in a fairly small window of X amount of years where we can really maximize the amount of money we can make. So I really want to, invest into that, but also like, I'm not going to make the money and I'm not going to draft the best if I don't have some form of balance around it. Yeah. And I'm like a fucking curmudgeon and, I'm like angrily drafting or whatever. And I'm not being thoughtful about it. So I enjoyed this question because I wanted to hear how you're doing it, especially, with a new baby. But I think it's for like, if they're listening to this, right, it has sicko in the goddamn name. And like, these people are listening to best ball podcasts and stuff or year round about some crazy stuff. They're probably drafting a ton. And even someone they're like, I want to draft 500 teams. That's a lot of time, dude. that like 45 minutes of draft, or however many, minutes a day with slow drafts, that is a lot of time. And so it's easy to wear you down if you're not like being cognizant of like staying in the right headspace for it.
No, and a few other things. One, like trying to establish kind of good habits on stuff. And I'm not great at this, but like I have gotten in a good routine where it's like, and nothing crazy, but I'm just going like 3 days a week. I am going to the gym, and those times are in, and like, all right, that's happening. So that's at least something. If I'm too busy, if I see myself getting busy, I know I need to like make sure like something like that's in place. Cause if I get busy, like nothing will happen. You know what I mean? Like I'll make sure that I get done what I need to get done work wise, but then I won't have enough time. So actually, to that point, I should probably just like plan in more stuff like what you're doing, just like, kind of family time, so that it's protected in that way. Can be helpful of like, and I know Pete does some of that where he like schedules in a lot of different things. I think that's smart. The other thing I would say is I don't tend to listen to, like, if I'm not like working or drafting, I don't tend to like listen to a lot of fantasy football content. There's some stuff like I listen to the Roto World pod because like I used to podcast with those guys all the time, and like it's like kind of just checking in with my buddies. That's how it feels. But it's like, I do so much content, so I'm like kind of talking to all of these other analysts all the time, and so I kind of have a good sense of. So, I try to listen to F1 stuff. I'm still watching F1. Even it's the most
shout out Monaco weekend, baby.
Monaco weekend.
I love. Hey, hold on, Max. It's getting. Look, I've waited.
I haven't watched the Emilia Romagna one yet.
I've waited like 2.5 years for somebody to ever actually start competing with Red Bull, and it's finally happening. So I'm starting to get back excited. It's been a fucking miserable mess.
It's been miserable, truly miserable. Yeah, but I still listen. There's an F1 podcast. Actually, the Ringers one I like, and then Missed Apex is the other one I like, with the guy who's on the Ringer one all the time. It's his pod. So I listen to that stuff. I listen to like any kind of Finding Drago. Leone recommended is like it's like kind of like a narrative podcast thing that these dudes in Australia did. It's very just like lighthearted, kind of enjoyable. Little kind of story, it's like a story about these guys trying to track down who wrote this book. They found this weird book and they want to figure out how it got made. It's pretty fun. Dead Eyes is a podcast I've recommended in the past. It's like this comedian kind of telling the story of how early in his career he was fired from Band of Brothers because Tom Hanks said he had dead eyes. And
I've heard of this one. I've heard of this one before. Yeah.
So that was it. Yeah, I probably did. So there's like stuff like that where I'm just like, let me get my brain like completely away from this stuff and just like enjoying something, and just like having like interests and thoughts that have nothing to do with fantasy football, and then coming back to the draft and thinking through this stuff, and maybe you feel a little bit more fresh. And then the last thing I would say is like, I am experimenting right now in the puppy, and I'm almost viewing it like the Rocky montage of like, I'm seeing these draft boards. I'm seeing if I can do any weird stuff, like what I can get away with, like I'm willing to fail in these drafts right now. That's like, I'm trying to test, like what happens if I take one wide receiver through 5 rounds? Like, can I dig out? Is it possible? Or are these teams totally dead? I'm saying they're dead. What if I think I'm a pretty good drafter. Can I do it?
Right.
And so I'm experimenting. I'm doing stuff. I would say like, if you always draft off ADP, upload some rankings. If you always draft off the same rankings, upload some different rankings. If you draft off rankings all the time, go off ADP, like try to mix it up, take a player you've never taken, build a team around him. Like it's May. Like if you're starting to feel like you're doing, if you're finding like you're just like in the same like path again and again and again. And we know our brains take shortcuts on this stuff. We know that like, that's how we find the shortcuts and we just repeat them. So I would say try to find like new paths, new ways to get to a different path that you can in these drafts, because right now is the time to be like, if we are getting back to just kind of the drafting conversation, right now is the time to be like exploring, experimenting, seeing what kind of what the whole player pool looks and feels like in different combinations and everything. And then later we're going to take that information and we're going to get new actual real life information about who the best picks are. and we hopefully can combine that into just some ridiculously good teams.
I love that. That's how this strategy was okay. It didn't work. It didn't work awesome last year, but I kind of coined it as the triple option strategy last year. But I specifically stumbled across it doing literally exactly what you said. And it was one of the most popular like articles and strategies, probably because it hit everybody. It made sense to everybody. Like robust running back bros, it fit that. Zero running back bros, it fit that. It was like here's a strategy that no one's gonna hate. like it's not based around running back, guys. It's not based around wide receiver, so no one can really hate it. Plus, it was drafting probably the whole premise was like triple option, so 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends, but correlating them and waiting on them was the idea.
I like that. Yeah.
So it was, and I actually want to try a couple more of those this year because to your exact point, if that's not how I feel I should be drafting this year. My edges are not that structure. So I want to go back and say, okay, well, you realize that this was a potentially advantageous structure, but you don't think it applies necessarily this year. Can you draft teams that you do like with this kind of different strategy? So exploring, I totally agree. And then I was just going to add, and I promised we'll move on, but I actually, again, it's our podcast. It's my podcast. I'll talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. And, but I enjoy this kind of stuff, but I'll add like what you're talking about. I genuinely believe you can learn a lot about things you can apply to these games, right? We're just playing a silly strategy game. It's fun. It's nuanced. We're talking about football and all that. It's great, but it's just a silly little strategy game. And you can learn stuff from all these other things. I can't say specifically what I'm going to learn listening to an F1 podcast, or I'm big into true crime and history. I'm like a 65-year-old man in a 36-year-old's body. I love that kind of stuff. But I'll learn things from these other podcasts. Like I like entrepreneurial stuff. I was telling you before, a pod I've listened to it for a long time, but it keeps getting better and better. If people like business, they just talk about like interesting things in like the business world and entrepreneurial world. It's called My First Million. It's great. They're really entertaining too. They're kind of like bros, but they're like successful entrepreneurs. They've exited for some nice exits. I learned stuff from them. I learned stuff from, like I said, from history. I listened to a history podcast called History Daily. It's literally every single day. And it's like 10 to 15 minutes on something that's happened in the world history on that day. And so it's just like I'll just cool. Let's go on the treadmill for 15 minutes and learn something about something that happened in history. And then I also end up finding all these different things that I listen to. Basketball is my favorite sport from X's and O, like even more so than football. I played football. We talk about football. It's our lives. I love basketball, like from just like being a fan perspective. And so I listen to tons. I listen to college basketball podcasts and NBA podcasts, like actual basketball, like not fantasy podcasts. And like you'll learn things from all of that. Like the way that they construct.
And even if you don't, keep it fun. Keep it fun. This is supposed to be fun. If it's not feeling fun, do something else.
100%. So there's just tons of different ways to go about this exact question, and you got to find the one that's right for you. But hopefully, some of those have helped. Let's get into some fantasy specific stuff.
Yeah, can I throw one out?
Yes, go. Sorry.
So this one I think is kind of interesting, fantasy related. How and when do you weight roster construction versus value? Example: if a player is dropped well past ADP, yet it doesn't make sense with their roster construction that you have. Do you take the value? Do you keep treading on your current path? What do you consider when making that decision?
I love this. This might be I don't know about toughest, but certainly the most. Everyone feels this in every draft you ever do. You feel this. Guy is around past ADP. He's at the top, he's at the top of the list. He's jumping off the screen to you, but he doesn't necessarily fit perfect with the team that you are building. I think most people will side with ADP value the majority of the time. And I think I probably would have 2 years ago and just said, oh, the value's too good. I'll make it work. Right. You can always tell yourself a story really with any pick, but certainly with that, you say he's late after ADP. This is unique. I'm getting a higher projected player, blah, blah, blah. I have really started to go the opposite way on this. Of course, there's nuance, right? If he does still kind of fit with my roster construction, it can make sense. But I think one of the worst things that I've done historically is get so obsessed over that ADP number and the potential value and screwed up it's not over when I drafted that guy, but screwed up the plan that I was building all throughout, right? I'm 7 rounds in and this 8th round pick does not fit, but he's a round past ADP. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to take this and figure it out. I think that the roster you're always balancing both, but I think we tend as drafters to skew too far towards the ADP side and not enough towards the roster construction side. And so I'm really trying to focus on the roster construction side a lot more and make sure I'm not just taking value to take value and it fits that team.
Yeah, I think one way to think about it, probably the easiest way, is like, let's say you take Lamar Jackson. You probably have a Texans piece as well. Obviously, you're not going to take Stroud in the 5th round. That would be kind of wacky.
It happens with quarterback a lot, don't you think?
Yeah, it happens with quarterback. Yeah, this is the easy one. And so, but where would Stroud become like a good fit structurally for that team? And it's probably like the 8th, 9th round before you would really even consider another quarterback. And so, like, maybe, okay, you're getting the ADP value. You probably also have the Houston side of that game. You could argue, do you want to stack both sides with both quarterbacks, but whatever. So do you want to – where would Stroud actually, like, make sense? And it's like probably the 7th. Like, you should probably throw him back around that turn and see. But no, you're not going to want to do – if he comes back on the 6th, you're like, should I just grab both? It's like probably not, right? Like, when you take Jackson, it changes the value of all the other players, and specifically the quarterbacks. So you would want to, I think, trying to think through like what that does to the actual value, in the same way that, like, when you take Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, and James Cook, it changes the value of all the other running backs. And so, yes, when you have Alvin Kamara available to you in the late 7th, that is unusual. But is it unusual enough? I would say no. I would say that's not unusual enough that you would want to go out of structure for me to grab the 4th round, unless all my other picks to that point were wide receivers. If I had 4 wide receivers and 2 running backs to that, no, I guess I just said I already had 3. So I know I have 3 wide receivers and 3 running backs through 6 rounds. I'm not taking Kamara as my 4th running back and 3rd wide. I'm just not. I'm not going to do it. So, not that, like, you definitely can't, but that's just like, look, if Joe Mixon was there, I probably would, because I think Joe Mixon, that strikes me as like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. I'm just going to do this. But I think that's, make that decision for yourself in terms of, but that's, I think, the way to think through it, of like, it's not just an ADP value. It's, does this ADP value make up for the difference in what I've changed the value by the way I'm structuring the team? And so a lot of times I don't think it will. When you get a value, do you then try to, like, use that value to be more than the draft capital that it was technically worth? Or do you just kind of build normally? Like, if you're, you know what I mean? Like, if you get Mixon in the 7th, are you like, I have a free 5th round Mixon, or you get James Cook in the 6th? Are you like, I think James Cook should be a 4th round pick, and that's just how I'm going to build this team. Like, I have a 4th round running back instead of a 6th round running back, or whatever. Or you kind of like still sort of budget things similarly.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, that there's never really anything where it's like you can or can't. Like, that's the fun part about this game, is that really you could justify just about anything, right? We can tell a story for anything. But as you said, okay, so if you're going to take does it offset, right, that this value, what the value is providing, does it offset the other things that it's now doing to this team as a collective, right? Because every pick is a piece of an 18 or 20 person draft, and we're trying to create the best 18 or 20 person collection. We're not trying to make the best every single time we're on the clock. We're not trying to make the best pick in a silo,
right?
In a vacuum. For that. It's got to be the best pick for this collection of players, which is why The quarterback thing is the easiest one to like understand, but I also think it's probably the one that we screw up the most because they have the widest range of ADP, right? Which is another thing about ADP that drives me nuts. Is like we call, it's called ADP because it's easier to say the acronym. It's called average draft position. It's in a list on our site, but it's an average, which means he doesn't always go right. So when we say I got 6 picks of ADP value, it's like, yeah, but like he probably goes there pretty frequently because it's an average.
Because some people reach. Yeah.
Yes, because some people take him higher and he falls lower other times. So like, but we average, it's the only way to display it is one number, right? It doesn't give you a freaking range. Underdog's not going to say, well, here's the highest he went and here's the average he went. And here's
Should we demand standard deviation from Underdog?
Absolutely. Underdog now, Rudman, please save us from our ADP slavery by giving us standard deviations of where they go. But quarterback specifically is the one where I think we screw it up the most because of how our brain thinks about ADP and thinks about this list of players. But like, I actually just wrote about this morning in our survey where Dak Prescott on specifically on DraftKings, but really on all the sites, because the only Cowboy that goes ahead of him, I don't even know Ferg. Ferg is close enough, but it's CeeDee Lamb. So if you have CeeDee Lamb, no one else has a Cowboy by the time Dak Prescott comes up. So like his ADP, sometimes the CD person reaches, sometimes you get just idiots reaching, but then sometimes he falls like 2 rounds past ADP because you took the Cowboys and you're in a room of other drafters who care about correlation and care about the things we're talking about. So like if you're the non-CD drafter, and you see him and he's around past ADP, but you have Lamar Jackson already, your brain is like ADP value. And it's like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it because he is not as helpful to your team as the ADP value may make you feel at the time.
What about the question? So that the second thing there, like if you get one of those ADP values, do you actually build differently around it? Like,
yes.
Okay. You build like it's what you have ranked or what it's normally.
Right. Because that's what you've said. Yeah. That's basically what I value him so high, the production and the profile I'm getting now at this price is so valuable that I need to forego the other levers I'm pulling in this draft to kind of screw up this roster construction. So now I need to turn it into the roster construction that says this guy was that valuable, right? Like you said, Alvin Kamara was that valuable that now I need to turn. This is a 4 running back team. I'm not taking any others.
Yes,
I'm figuring something out. Maybe he's so valuable now. A.T. Perry and Juwan Johnson are more, I'm just making something up, but like something has changed drastically about the team because of that ADP value. It's not just like, oh, this was good, right? The manifesto said ADP value is good. It's not that, it's the why behind it. So now adjust your team because of that why.
Yeah. You can also do that with stuff like Rashee Rice. Like if you're taking Rashee Rice, you can both say, I would prefer to have Rashee Rice on 5 wide receiver builds because he is going to get suspended. But you can also say, like, this team's kind of loaded at wide receiver at the end of the season now. And so I'm going to kind of treat it like I'm going to push wide receiver 6 a little further than I might, depending on how you feel about your first 4 wide receivers. But if those are all like if you won't go four straight wide receivers, then come back and grab Rice in like round 7 or 8 as your wide receiver 5, then like I've got, based on the bet that I've made, I have Rashee Rice playing a bunch of games this year. And, especially at the end of the season, I'm going to be pretty strong. So there's certain kind of player archetypes too, where you can be like Jonathan Brooks, you can kind of say like, I've got my late season upside now, like a Breece Hall, Jonathan Brooks start. Not literally, but you got, those are your top 2 running backs. You'd be like the end of season upside on this team is actually pretty awesome now.
Yeah.
And so, maybe you grab like a Brian Robinson RB3 but you're like, I'm actually doing better. And that's not really even about where they go. Certainly if you get an ADP value on that guy too. That's even better.
Totally agree. Let's look at, I like this one, moving to a little bit more player focus. It's not, he uses player examples, but it's conceptual. Also, epic username Helen Eckler got me when I had to make sure that we could put the username in there because that's very good. But he or she asks, If Keenan Allen did not exist, how highly would you draft Odunze? If Chase or Higgins did not exist, where would you take Burton? And the concept being, are there any situations where, we constantly talk about target competition and ambiguous and, we use all these keywords, but like, are there any specific rookies or situations where something, there is maybe a roadblock and we're perceiving a roadblock like Rome with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen in front of him, but like the contingent value of that wide receiver is far greater than what, right? Like contingent value is oftentimes a myth with wide receivers, but not always. And so those can be really impactful situations, especially with these kind of rookies, like he or she is asking about.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Rome, to answer the question literally, I would probably say Rome would be in the early 4th round without Keenan Allen there. You think about him, I think in the group of like Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, T. Higgins. Maybe he goes just after that. And then Burton, if there was no T. Higgins. So we're talking about the likely wide receiver 2 on the Bengals as a rookie. What was he, a 3rd round pick? Has some red flags, had some stuff we're excited about. I think he would go near Christian Watson. Maybe that's too high. That's probably too high. Would he go? Maybe he'd go in that pocket of around like Rashid Shaheed, Mike Wallace, Curtis Samuel, Mike Williams, Tyler Lockett. I bet he would go in that bucket. So in the early 100s.
Where would you take him? Higher than that?
Yeah, I think I would start thinking about him around Watson, which is why I said that. But I don't think he'll go. I don't think he would actually go there.
I was gonna say he would go there. That's what I was gonna say. Watson, Hopkins. This is a little cheating of an answer. That is the wide receiver dead zone,
right.
kind of.
Right.
So if we don't like, 3rd round pick, so we don't like him quite as much as Ladd and Keon. The market doesn't. The royal we doesn't like him as much as Ladd and Keon, who also have paths to being the number 1 option on their offense, where this Burton would not. So he goes a little bit after.
So do guys going behind him as well. Like, I mean, Cortland Sutton being the prime example.
Yeah. So I would say, we'll just call that in the 80s on Underdog.
Yeah.
That's where he would go, and I would absolutely draft him. I would absolutely draft him there. And it's an interesting conversation because I was not that high on Burton. Like I saw I'm well aware of the upside and he was a big time, big play guy at Alabama. And certainly it's possible that the target earning wasn't incredible because of Alabama, and Jalen Milroe is like a glorified running back playing quarterback. So there could be some impacts of that. I have some small concerns about like, what really is he in terms of an NFL? Like, maybe the ceiling is Deshaun Jackson, which is fucking awesome for best ball. But I don't think the ceiling is Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase.
No,
and I could certainly be wrong about that, but
I don't think the Bengals think that. He's there to do a thing.
Yeah, which is a great thing and a good thing next to Jamar Chase and all of that. But I think he's a specific role, which I don't want to go too crazy over. But it is the ceiling on that role is nice. And so even though I was like very lukewarm on him as a prospect, I would be willing to draft him a ton in like the 80s, even aside from the whole market dynamics. But the market dynamics would be pretty impactful. Like I really don't like Keon's prospect profile, and I really don't like the price on Keon either. So I'm not taking a ton of him. Whereas if we moved him back to like this Burton range or something, this new Burton range
we've made up.
The Bateman line is now the
Burton line.
The
hypothetical Burton line.
The hypothetical Jermaine Burton line is the Bateman line. People have been asking I think there might even be a question about what's the new Bateman line, but it's
Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's the Bateman line now. We moved the Bateman line up 3-4 rounds.
Yeah, we've gone crazy with these wide receivers, but hopefully that answers. Was there anybody else? Any other not to the Rome and Burton are great examples.
Rome, I think, is interesting. Else? I think it's interesting to talk a little bit more about Rome because I'm taking a lot of Rome Odunze, and I didn't think I would be. Same. Like at no point have I thought I would be like particularly in on Rome Odunze. He's like, kind of, he does all the things a number one wide receiver is supposed to do. Like he seems like a little Michael Crabtree-esque to me or something. He's like got the back shoulder throw thing down. He's athletic, but it's not like he doesn't jump off the page with the athleticism. He separates, but he doesn't like separate a ton, like he kind of does all the stuff and you're like, yeah, he's good, but like, he's not like the most amazing, explosive, super fun to dream on type of guy. But then, it's like, but he is going to go top 10. That seems very, very clear. He wasn't an early declare, but he was pretty productive. He checks a lot of boxes for 4-year guy. So I'm not like super, super concerned about that. But I was just like assuming that he would be too expensive and I'd have to be like, And then he wasn't. He really wasn't in Dynasty and early big board stuff. I feel like I got plenty in the big board. And then now, I mean, when you get to the 6th round, you very often need a receiver. And he's sitting there as the 9th overall pick. And, you're being, I think soon you're going to be asked to take Ladd McConkey ahead of him because the drumbeat's already starting on Ladd that, he's got the connection with Herbert. If you don't have any Ladd McConkey, I would recommend getting some now. You're not going to like him in the 5th. If you want
some, it's only getting steamier.
It's going to get steamier and steamier. And like, go look at look at ETR's projections on, Ladd and not projections, but their rankings. But they're, we are going to have if there's what's happening, I think, is that right now there's uncertainty that's making Palmer really high. And, Ladd they have Ladd above Palmer, but what happens when the news kind of ticks target share in projections to Ladd instead of Palmer? He can go quite a bit higher. There's some concern about the passing volume in the Chargers passing game that I have as well, but there's going to be enough there's enough target uncertainty currently that it's like, I don't know who this is going to, or this is going to Quentin Johnson. Actually, maybe not. It might go to Ladd. Starts to happen. I think he could. He's one of the rare. What I'm trying to say is most of the time the rookie hype is driven by like me and Erik. It's like tough people JSN. Like us. Right. JSN. It's like JSN. But like me and Erik types, I mean. But like but it's in this case could also be driven by like the training camp, film community, the projection community.
We're all coming together on
Ladd. We're meeting up in August and we're hyping the shit out of Ladd McConkey. So get some exposure now. And I am trying. So I'm actually kind of struggling because I'm like, should I just be taking Ladd over Rome now? Because that's how I see it going later in the summer. But I am struggling to take a 2nd round pick who didn't really get on the field that much to, over Rome Odunze, who went like 9th overall and like no one thinks he's bad. Like I think you can poke up some holes, but like I haven't seen anyone make like a legit like Rome Odunze is actually a bad prospect. I've yet to see anyone do that because I don't think it would be a very strong case. I don't think that's what no one's taking that on because it's not going to be easy.
And we'll take on some bad tasks in this case and some bad takes, and no one's willing to take it that one part. No
one's willing to jump on it. Yeah. So to me, I'm like, man, I mean, this guy, he seems like a pretty good, like, I don't know, the NFL is chaotic bet to me.
Keenan out. Look, I love Keenan. People using our ranks are probably getting a lot of Keenan because I think like when it all boils down, like I just like to draft good football players and like you said, let the chaos of football work itself out. Sometimes that misses and teams don't throw enough, or the targets are spread out, and sometimes the guys who are, Hall of Fame level football players are Hall of Fame level football players, and none of the shit that we talk about all summer matters. So that's generally where I tend to lie, but that's the Rome Odunze case as well. It's like, look, if I was willing to draft JSN last year at this price or a steeper price, I don't see why I would be blocked.
Yeah, we can't be out on.
Yeah, and so the crazy thing about Rome, dude, you want to draft Rome? if you like Rome and you think the price is good on Underdog, may I interest you in DraftKings.com, where he's going in the 80s, and Ladd is going already in like the 50s or early 60s or something. I just checked right now on Underdog. There are 2 picks of ADP separating them. I suspect the flippening is coming probably pretty darn quickly. You mentioned the hype about Ladd already. Ladd is a guy I love. If you would like to dust off the eye test and the tape, bro, I think if you watch him, you'll be impressed with how good he is. And then
he definitely fits the modern game too. Like you just like guy who like gets open over the middle of the field, sufficient size, plays inside and out. Like there's some red flags and like some pretty serious red flags in the statistical profile, but he was really efficient on a per route basis, and like his game just like is the NFL game right now. So I'm having a hard time being out.
And he has Justin Herbert as his quarterback, and theoretically good coaching. We'll see, but theoretically good coaching. And I do.
And he's super athletic. That was a part of it for me. I was like, oh, this guy's boring. And it's like, no, actually, he's like,
because his name's really Ladd McConkey. We all thought he was going to run 4.68 or something like that.
Right.
At the combine, but he's a freak. He's a freak.
He's actually not scrappy.
Walk on. Yeah. He is not Julian Edelman. Okay. I promise you guys. He sounds like it. You would expect he's Julian Edelman with that name.
He's not a lunch pail hard hat guy. He's just super athletic. And I was like, what? Where's his hard hat?
Yeah, Georgia had 2 dudes, one named Ladd McConkey and one named Brock Bowers, and they're both the freakiest looking athletes you've ever seen. And if you look at him with like the Bowers, what was he next to Gronk or whoever it was? Bowers standing there, he looks like, he just came from chemistry class or whatever. Like these guys don't look impressive at all, but they're freaks on the football field. Just to wrap Ladd, So I believe in my process, but I'm also open-minded to these kinds of things. I'm very efficiency driven. Like, I believe that that's how you find the guys. Like the Ladd profile is is very Puka-esque, where when he was out there, he balled out. Like all he did was ball out. He was super efficient. I know it's Georgia versus BYU, but the BYU offense was actually really good during the Puka days and competition, blah, blah, blah. But
you're not going to get any pushback on Puka now. You can say whatever you want.
Yes, 100%. We all whiffed, but it's okay. We can use him as we can use it as a shining example. But I am like trying to still continue to be a little cautious when the efficiency is absolutely amazing, but the volume is so low, because those guys also do miss a lot. They hit. I think that it's an archetype that can be undervalued, like Puka was, but it can also be the archetype where like we make sweeping proclamations about how good this guy is based on efficiency, and the sample is really small. That like you could argue this about guys like Chase Brown in the NFL, right? And these things happen where we're like, oh, look at him pop in that sample, and it's like, yeah, but it was like 50 touches.
That was a play. He did it.
Like,
play. I mean, Brown, but it was one.
Me too. I love him, but I also loved him as a prospect. So it was a little, some of that as well.
Also very athletic.
Just the exactly. Who? Just last thing on this. Who Rome reminds me of? I was looking at this the other day. This is scary, by the way, but also he was awesome in college. Justin Blackmon reminds me of Justin, and then I'm like going through.
Is that good? I think that's good, isn't it?
It's really good. Justin Blackmon was like a top 5 pick in the NFL. Now he flamed out.
I can see that.
But it feels like it was just like stylistically, the production 4 years was kind of like good, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, this guy's a top 10 player in the NFL in an NFL draft. Obviously Blackmon did not pan out, but it was like I
don't think it was a skill issue.
No, I don't think it was a skill issue either. Blackmon was a little bit better. I think I'm just looking. Yeah, he won the Blitnikoff twice. But I think that was a little bit of his era was a little different. He wasn't competing with Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors for the Blitnikoff. Like nobody else was winning it besides those guys this coming year. But anyway, that wraps that one. What do you got?
All right. I had one. Let's see. Where did my list go? So here's one about, so we kind of talked about, we've talked a lot about the running backs that are going, and this is probably a quick one, but the running backs, there's running back values kind of throughout the draft. We haven't really talked a lot about Bijan and Breece is kind of those guys of like where they should be drafted. And I think in the kind of modern ADP environment of the last maybe 2 years, where like I'm not really trying to push back that much against like ETR has Amon-Ra, I think 5th, and he flipped those guys, and I had him behind those guys, and that's helped drive the ADP. So Amon-Ra flipped them. Once that happened, I just went with the ADP because I'm not wanting to be fading Amon-Ra this year. I'm just not really interested in that. And so I've just kind of flipped along with the market. Bijan flipped Breece. I did the same thing. Jefferson flipped Breece after they got McCarthy. Okay, that sounds good. I want Jefferson. I also want Breece. So I've just kind of been with the market in the first round because I think all of these guys deserve to be first round picks, and I don't want to be fading them. But the question was, why aren't Bijan and Breece the 102 and 103 in consensus rankings? And there really is no reason, right? Like these dudes are super, super good picks.
100%. And I'm the guy pushing back on all the early round running backs. So I guess what I would say to answer that question is, again, using our one of our favorite phrases, like the whole back to front drafting in the market.
Yeah.
Assessment.
It's what the market's doing after those picks is why.
Yeah. It's not them. And it's, again, like I'm trying to create the best 18 or 20 person roster, and I can get really, really, really good running back picks with mega, mega upside much, much, much later. And I can recreate. I know people like to are making fun of me for these catchphrases from Moneyball. I can recreate the running back in the aggregate later. I can't recreate Jamar Chase. I can't recreate Tyreek Hill. I can't even recreate. I mean, Justin Jefferson goes past after all these guys, including Amon-Ra on some sites. And Justin Jefferson might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Like he's destined for the Hall of Fame. He might break every goddamn receiving record we've ever seen if he stays healthy. And that doesn't even like he was doing it with anybody at quarterback. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. He's that good. I cannot find that. And now Breece and Bijan are on a different level of running back talent to those guys. But the way the running back position produces fantasy points is different from the way the wide receiver position produces it. So it has absolutely nothing to do with Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. I think 3 years ago, it would be McCaffrey, Breece, Bijan probably, or maybe
I think, 3-4 years ago. But I think the thing about that is that when you come back, you're getting Drake London, right? You might even be getting, you're probably not getting Puka, but you probably would get Drake London because he'd be pushed down by, it'd be like Saquon, JT, but then Josh Jacobs, then Pacheco, right? Like those guys would be second round picks and they'd actually push down like a Drake London. And you might be able to start like Breece, Drake London,
Marvin
Chris
Harrison.
Olave.
Where would Harrison go? Marvin goes.
I was saving Harrison for the fourth.
Yeah.
Here he comes back in the fourth. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think, I mean, we saw this with Chase when he came out, he was like a 4th, 5th round pick. So you got Harrison in the 4th in this ADP environment. And then at that point, take Breece 103, no problem. I mean, if at that point he is the 103, he should be the 103 because it's like I can get wide receiver. I can load up at wide receiver 2 through 4 or 2 through 5 or 2 through 6 and be super strong. And then the question of like, what can I get later is like, well, what I can't get later is access to a potential earth-shattering Breece season and paired with, all the other stuff at wide receiver. Now the earth-shattering Breece season, it's not that has changed. I mean, he could still do the legendary upside thing, but what are you pairing it with? And, the opportunity cost of attempting to roster that is a lot higher, even though he's cheaper, because it costs you that shot to get a receiver that just is, once you don't take the receivers in the early rounds, you don't get a chance to get those types of profiles later.
100%. The crazy thing about running back is you can have a season like Christian McCaffrey did last year and be drawing dead to win any best ball tournaments, any format. CeeDee Lamb was so good and Tyreek was so good for the majority of the season. And then, you could recreate enough of Christian McCaffrey's production.
Well, McCaffrey dudded in the final. If he had smashed in the final, you would have been fine.
But he, Yeah, but it was still
hurt in the
because
final.
CD. But so in the playoff format, CD put up such a score that like even if McCaffrey crushed,
even if McCaffrey went off, you were in trouble.
It was going to be really, really tough. But then like on drafters in cumulative scoring format, CD was still the best. CD was still the best pick. Part of it was because of, you know, second round picks you would pair him with, but also again, when you could have gotten Kyren, Achane, Mostert, you know, all these guys like, and even guys that crushed for stretches, which we talk a lot about, right? Like James Conner had a big 4 weeks or whatever. Donta Foreman had a big 3 weeks. You know, these guys that have big weeks for even like a month, you can happen to layer them in together at running back and recreate what Christian McCaffrey does. So you bolt on CD Lamb next to this just supercharged running back room of 6 or 7 guys. The math just works out that way, right? And the other thing about a couple of years ago, like we talk about the wide receiver running back dynamics because it's honestly the most fun and it triggers the most people. But like look back at the quarterback and tight end prices. I'll never forget Best Ball Mania 2 or 1. Which year was Diggs' first year on the Bills? 1? Best Ball Mania 1. Anyway, it's not important. But
well, Liam won the year 2, so it might have been that year.
But that wasn't Diggs' first year, was it?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but it doesn't matter. That year, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, you could get in like round 7 and 8. You could stack them in round 7 and 8. Because we weren't sure Josh Allen was Josh Allen just yet. You know, we weren't sure. You know, we knew Diggs was good. We didn't, and it was a different market. I get it, but like, think about that. Josh Allen is consistently going in the second round.
It was Best Ball Mania 1 that was his first year. Yeah.
So you could do that back then, right? So this is a long time ago, but still. Then before Jalen Hurts became Jalen Hurts, it was like round 6 and round 7. Jalen Hurts with AJ Brown, with Devonta Smith, with Dallas Goedert, like round 6, Jalen Hurts. Like we were able to get that. And so Travis Kelce, you know, eventually Travis Kelce went in the first round, but we used to get Travis Kelce later and Mark Andrews later and George Kittle later. And now we're kind of
happening
again. Yeah. We've reverted back because, don't you know, last year's the only thing that matters, not anything else.
Yeah. But, not the many years before that at all.
It's all of that to the running back thing. It's like all of that. Like, why would Breece have been the 102 and I would have taken him at 102 3 years ago? Was because of wide receiver prices, but also because I could get Jalen Hurts in round 6.
Yeah, quarterback prices is a good point too. Yeah. Well, I actually had a question from someone on quarterbacks as well. So actually, I'll just do these 2 and then throw it back to you. So elite quarterbacks and then the garbage quarterbacks. So maybe we can just kind of talk about the quarterback landscape. So talk me out of taking so many Stroud teams on the front half of drafts, Allen Hurts teams out of the back half of drafts, and Lamar teams everywhere. All right, there's 1, and then 2. I like that. What garbage stacks are you finding yourself in drafts? Are you seeing differences in which of the garbage stacks that you prefer across the sites? Actually, third question is very similar. What are the offenses that we're undervaluing at this stage of the calendar? And I think most interesting are probably the late ones there. So garbage stacks and elite quarterbacks, because I do think both are interesting. I also don't mind the medium priced quarterbacks. I think kind of all the quarterbacks are pretty well priced. It's a weird, I have a lot of gripes with, you know, kind of positional price. Well, not a lot, I guess mostly I think structurally the tight ends are just too cheap. Yeah. I think the wide receivers are annoyingly expensive, but I totally get it. I think the running backs are weirdly cheap, but also it makes sense. And then I think the quarterbacks are just kind of well priced throughout. But I am finding myself tempted a lot to get out of structure by Allen, by Hurts. You can do like a Devonta in the 3rd and try to get Hurts coming back. Allen is coming back to me in the 4th. That feels really good. Lamar, I'm trying to get Lamar and Andrews, trying to do some Lamar and Flowers. You can also try to do the Lamar Andrews with Texans. If you take like, you know, Nico out of the 11, you go Nico, then you go Andrews, and then you're like, all right, you're either taking naked Lamar or you're giving me the Lamar, or I'm getting the Stroud with the Andrews bring back. So I love doing so. Anyway, this first question about, I'm not going to talk you out. I'm doing this myself, but it is difficult to do this. And then, you know, particularly with Allen, you've got Kincaid, you've got Cook. and then you've got a Coleman reach. So all of a sudden you have somewhat unappealing. If you haven't started wide receiver, and even if you have, the Allen stuff can start to get a little dicey, and you're coming out of structure for these elite quarterbacks, which makes sometimes just punting off the quarterback position with these garbage stacks appealing.
Definitely. I said on a show recently that if I would flag plant like if I could build every team with like one like start, it would be wide receiver, ideally one of the Texans guys, Lamar Andrews, through 5 rounds.
That is be like so sick.
Like that's what I'm trying to do. Like I'm willing to miss out on Andrews.
I am too.
Just to be like, please,
yeah.
Like I'll take it as many times as I can get it. If I got it right, if it's got to be Tez or Likely or Bateman or whatever, like fine, I'll deal with it. But give me as many shots at that as I can is a pillar of how I'm drafting right now. So to that first question, Lamar.
When I see a completed one of those, when I see it that I did it, I get nervous. When it's the 6th and 7th round, I'm like, oh man, don't fuck it up.
Yeah, you did this. You achieved your goal. Yeah, like I sit up. Yeah, right. Like you sit up and you're like, like I'm normally drafting like this, right? You're clicking some buttons, you're listening to some music or a podcast or whatever, and then when Andrews falls, you're like, fuck yes. You like sit up. Like my dogs start barking. They're like, what happened? I'm like, I just got Mark Andrews at pick 56. So okay, let's go.
Wait, I gotta give you this one. This isn't Lamar Andrews. This is even crazier. I started Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Travis Kelce, Zay Flowers, and then Mahomes made it to me in the late 5th, and I took Xavier Worthy. And I made the guy on the turn decide if he's going to grab, and he had to. Here's the other thing. This is extra rare. Stroud also available, and he had Dell. So I was like, beautiful. Let's see it. Like, let's see if you know how to draft. And I'm willing to ruin this if you don't. And and he didn't screw it up. He didn't screw it up, and I got Mahomes with Xavier Worthy and Kelce and 3 other receivers. So that's now when I see that one come back around, I'm not gonna.
Pants are off. The
pants are off. I'm gonna lock myself in the other room, think about it. I can't screw this up now. I'm so nervous.
100%. The wife's like, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, please shut up. I got 30 more minutes. Ask me in 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Yeah.
But no, so I will just say what you just outlined is like, people don't talk about that enough. Like manipulating your opponents in your draft, being willing to not get right. You set out for a goal when you made that tactical move, but being willing to say, look, if it doesn't fall into place, I can still draft a good team. It's not over just because I didn't get my number one priority here, because the fallback options are fine. It's totally fine if I get those fallback options, but putting your opponents to the test, right? Pushing them up against the wall, being intentional and exploitative in that draft, rather than just saying, oh, I need Mahomes. Mahomes fits this team. Let's just take it. But you can like eke just that little tiny, that
I would have done. If I had Jaden Reed there, I was like, oh, I want to add Jaden Reed. I'm not risking blowing up the team. It was because he's not letting me get Worthy back. He took Ridley with one of the 2 picks. Like he's going to take Worthy over Ridley. Like, he just is. So how do I get both? The only way to get both is to take Worthy and then hope he doesn't screw up something pretty obvious not to screw up. Don't take naked Mahomes when you have potentially stacked Dell, but like you can't count on it. Yep. He could. So he luckily did not. And I have this team, but like, yeah, I think is one of the edges. I think we would agree, right? That like, as the wide receivers now get priced up, it's taking away to some extent an edge. Because before you're just like, people don't understand that you need to get enough wide receiver capital. And now like enough people in the room do, to where like you kind of just are like holding hands with the other people drafting good teams in the room.
Yep.
And sometimes I stop holding hands and I try to do something, and then everyone's like, sweet, Pat's drafting a shit team. We're all he's not advancing, so that's one less team we have to. Now it's 2 of 11. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna figure it out. They're like, yeah,
he went back dead. To modern society. We're out here in the foothills of Nevada or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm never gonna ascend. You're never gonna ascend, Pat. You didn't take 3 receivers. So you have that element where like there's like a way to kind of, it's more table stakes to get the wide receiver firepower now. So to me, one of the elements we can still add is like you're attacking that specific board. You're saying you're using the turns to your advantage to understand like what the teams on the turn are incentivized to do if they want to build a good team, and then kind of force them to do that, to throw a good value in their face and be like, screw up your team. You know, are you going to screw up your team? Because the other thing is that even though if they do, it really hurts your team. Like if you end up with a Mahomes triple stack without Mahomes, like I think you can dig out of that, especially if like maybe you take a Jaden Daniels, you try to get the next rushing quarterback that you can kind of help close that actual quarterback gap of points with. But if they have like, you know, Allen and Mahomes, like that team's not doing anything. You know, so you're probably, you know, in the same way of like, if it's a tight end, if it's another running back, like this team really can't afford a fifth running back through 8 rounds. So you throw them that running back value, and if they take it, that hurts. But honestly, the team's probably dead now. A team just ended its chances. So it has some advantages. You know, it has a consolation silver lining level of an advantage. Obviously, you want them to do what you think they should do, so you get the team you want. But I do think that as I'm trying to do a little bit more of that this year than last year, where I think, you know, some of the macro edges are getting baked in a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's one of the I've done a lot of things wrong over the years. I think that's one of the things that I've done reasonably well is trying to use my opponents, you know, to my advantage, or pit them against themselves, which is kind of what you're doing, right? Put them in the corner, say, this is what you're supposed to do, buddy. If you screw it up, I'll still be okay, but you won't.
Right.
Type of a situation. And even if you do what I don't think you're supposed to do, like you said, I can dig out of it. Right. It goes back to what was it? The very first, the second question after the life question, was like, the ADP value thing is like, if you took the ADP value, now you live in this world where that has changed the course of this team. So what's the right course that has to be taken for this team to now be a super team, right? Okay, I have this Chiefs triple stack. The guy took Mahomes like an idiot. So now what world do I want to live in, right? How does this team succeed? Like you said, I need to, I got to recreate the Mahomes thing. And so, okay, like you said, Jaden Daniels, right? Or Roman Caleb, or I'm just making shit up, Brian Thomas and Trevor Lawrence, right? That's the thing that offsets it, or, something like that. Whatever your flavor is. But now I live in this new world where, like, yeah, Mahomes is going to be awesome, but I'm going to recreate his score, ping pong those Chiefs. But actually this other stack is the one, like you wanted the true, full stack. So back to that question, sometimes it'll be these, oh shit stacks, these dumpster diving stacks, backdoor stacks, whatever the hell you want to call them. We always name things about 12 different things in fantasy football, and we all seem to know what they are, but then we all call them different things, which is fun.
Are you proposing a convention, a fantasy football naming convention?
I propose we all come together. Yeah, we all complain about how the different data providers and the different sites use different abbreviations for shit, and then we do the same fucking thing. Like,
what is robust running back?
Tell me, because I don't know. I don't know.
I use the word when people post like beautifully constructed hyperfragile teams and like, I went robust. I was like, you didn't go robust.
No, I know. It triggers.
It's the opposite of robust.
I just mute those people so I never have to trigger myself. Like, if you're not going to use the definitions right, I don't want to see you on my timeline.
But I mean, at the same time, who's in the right? The person who just drafted a team and is like, I think I drafted some running backs early, it's robust. Or me, who's like, in 2019, robust running back was finally challenged by an early running back strategy called hyperfragile.
Yeah. Don't you understand draft capital buckets, buddy? Like, come on.
Yeah.
But the oh shit stacks, I think, are a huge pillar actually of this game. Not even because historically they're certainly good, because when they, when these types of cheap offenses exceed expectations, of which happen, could be variance, but it has happened like every year since best ball has exploded. Every single year we say this offense sucks, and then we look back and we're like,
well, it's just our overconfidence. It's not like, it's just like we price a couple offenses really, really cheaply. odds are it's going to kind of burn us collectively, except those of us who are taking 30% Jalen Polk with Drake May.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Come on down. We're going to go to war of Polk versus Javon Baker. Apparently.
No, we're not going to war, buddy. We're taking Baker too. You don't. The answer is both.
I drafted to this oh shit one. The Patriots, I think, are like kind of the industry darling of that, but it's also like really easy to understand why. Like really, really high upside rookie quarterback prospect. But also the thing I really like about the Patriots is a thing that I've been thinking a lot more about in recent years is like quarterback, the floor of quarterback play in an offense.
Yeah.
And so when you
bring very high here,
it's so high. Right. It was the Washington thing. Now, Washington didn't really work out in terms of like McLaurin, Dotson, et cetera.
Well, I think Dotson might be the part of the problem there.
Yeah. I was just
Dotson's responsible for his own success.
Curtis Samuel, right? It worked out for Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel was fine.
It worked out great for Brian Robinson. Yeah. And then we saw it work out for Terry McLaurin when Sam Howell hit the fucking bench, hit the showers. And Jacoby Brissett, right, is that thing. Yeah. He's the perfect addition to a quarterback room where you're like, well, I'm totally down to invest in this offense now because the worst thing that happens is Jacoby Brissett, and the best thing that happens is somebody much better than Jacoby Brissett. Like, that's amazing.
Think about how excited we would have been if Jacoby Brissett had been traded to the Jets last year.
Yeah. I mean, Garrett Wilson would be going ahead of Amon-Ra and Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. Probably. Garrett Wilson would have won leagues. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Like
he might be the 101.
I think he would be actually the 101. Yeah. So damn, like that floor I think is really important. Like you're just never going to Zach Wilson here on the Patriots. Like even if Drake May is Zach Wilson, you're not going to have to deal with it. Because they have Brissett, and if the thing about it, right, is he going to get benched at the end of the season if he's Zach Wilson? Maybe, but also, does he even see the field ever if he's Zach Wilson? Like if he's that bad, maybe they just sit him a full year. They're such a bad team. They've kind of already floated it. Like I don't think that's happening because I think Drake May is going to be good, but Brissett he does. I think he just as much as I do draft Drake May quite a bit. It's the receivers. I'm kind of coming around to the idea that it's really the receivers that are probably the key, even more than him.
Yep, I love the receivers. I will float. This is not the same as that. The Patriots one is at the top of the podium for me of this question, but one I've been taking a lot of, and so I'm just gonna rant really quickly about this. I was clearly trolling with a tweet about the Denver Broncos. And the amount of people that will take these things serious is frightening for society. I literally comped Jaleel McLaughlin to Tommy Lee Lewis in the 2017 Saints offense. I comped Greg Dulcich to Kobe Fleener because I thought it was fucking hilarious.
That is hilarious. It's actually a pretty good comp.
It is a pretty good comp, but I'm comping Bo Nix to Drew Brees. Like, guys, come on. I intentionally put.
Gretsch comped estimate of Chris Ivory the other day, which I think is just a beautiful comp.
That is a great comp. So I'll explain. You can go to my Twitter to see it because there's some people that are triggered about it, and some people that thought it was great. So, but too many people taking it serious on both sides. But I basically was saying Sean Payton is recreating the 2017 New Orleans Saints. And it is kind of funny because like the archetype, it's not the talent levels, but the archetypes are like, you're like, this does feel like Sean Payton's just playing the hits here, with the dollar store version. Bo Nix, this like, doesn't throw the ball deep, accuracy, quarterback. And then he's kind of got like, pick your poison, but some form of lightning and thunder in the backfield. I think Estime or Javonte, right? And then McLaughlin, or he's hyping up Blake Watson, who I do like as a prospect. I don't actually think he's going to be anything, but I put Blake Watson on there again, trolling. And then you kind of have this veteran Cortland Sutton wide receiver with these downfield flyers on the outside, Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, who are like every Sean Payton, Devery Henderson and Robert Meacham, and I think
it was Greg Cosell comped Franklin to Devery Henderson in that offense.
Which, like, sign me up for that, by the way, in best ball. And Marvin Mims is Robert Meacham or something. I'm totally in on that. But like, and then it even got down to
he is going to be Meacham because Meacham was a bust.
I know. we even get down to like the Dulcich versus Kobe Fleener. I'm like, everything fit so well. And then some people were making fun, like, well, this is a reach, or what do you think about McLaughlin and Javonte?
Hey Eric, when you comped 8 guys directly to 8 other guys, 2 of them were a reach. What the fuck?
Yeah, what was wrong with you? So like, I didn't put McLaughlin on there, and so I said, oh, for the people asking about McLaughlin, Tommy Lee Lewis equals Julian McLaughlin, just because he's they're small, fast guys. But
you didn't give him Sproles? Come on.
Sproles wasn't on the 2017 New Orleans Saints. Okay, so I had to find the only other small guy on the Saints who got like gadget touches.
I see.
Also, don't tweet with Tommy Lee in it. Dude, the porn bots came for that one.
Came
like
for you.
A mother. Holy shit, amount of porn bots. And it doesn't boost your engagement when you get 50 likes from Samantha and Kendra and stuff. But anyway, moral of this story is the Broncos are not the Patriots.
The porn bots' names are.
I need to stop trolling with my tweets. The Broncos are not the Patriots in that they don't have any level of floor play at quarterback. They don't have any level of floor across this offense. I understand why they're cheap. They could be putrid on offense. I'm not even convinced Sean Payton is like a perk, right? He could be a bug, not a feature of this offense. But if we are wrong, and maybe this collection of talent is better, maybe Sean Payton can get the best out of this collection of talent. We have an offense that is free. Like, you want to talk about free in drafts? Like, I don't know if I remember an offense this free and ambiguous. It's like, we're assuming Javonte is the guy, but like, dude, like, it costs them more to cut Samaje Perine than it cost them to cut Javonte Williams. Like, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but everybody's floating the Javonte or the Perine gets cut.
Does it save them more? They save $3 million.
No. It doesn't save them more. The cap,
the dead cap's lower because it's a rookie contract. Yeah, but that's unlikely because they don't tend to cut rookie contracts because you don't save much.
I'm not expecting it, but I'm just saying if Sean Payton said, I didn't draft this dude, I want Estime and Watson and McLaughlin and Perine. There's nothing technically stopping. They traded draft picks to get Sean Payton. I think that they're letting him run the show. I'm just saying it's wide open. Like, I expect it to be Javonte and Cortland Sutton, right? And I expect all of that. But we have no idea. And if that offense is any better than we think, just like the Texans last year, just like the Bucks, just like the Seahawks when they got Geno, just like all of these offenses that happen constantly, I'm really into that one in terms of a late stack. Like I said, the Patriots are very clearly at the top of the podium, but I like the Broncos as well.
Yeah, I like the Broncos too. I think the Sutton thing too. Sutton could just like dominate targets, I
just drafted him this morning.
Yeah. Nix is getting the ball out on time. We talk about how you can't where's the Bateman line? It might be Sutton, he's the wide receiver 1 on like a decent enough offense that kind of helps you get through. Now, I think you want him as your probably wide receiver 5, but you can talk me into like, just talking about this with Jacob Sanderson. Like you could definitely talk me into like, I'm using that group of receivers, Lockett, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, as like my wide receiver 5 so that I can get some of this more value early on. I'm using the Jalen Polk types as like my wide receiver 6 so that I can get more of that value early. I'd like, okay, that sounds like it could work for sure. It's just tough to like have Sutton be your wide receiver 4, right? Yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't think that's gonna work, but we'll see. Yeah, the other one I would throw out, and this is one I didn't really expect to be that into, but the Saints, you're getting, you can get Rashid Shaheed very late, and I think he's pretty clearly going to have like as many routes as like his little body can handle, and he's got the deep threat skill set, splash play skill set.
After the catch too, it's not even
after
just
the catch.
downfield.
That's true.
After the catch.
Clint Kubiak's there now, so maybe you get a little bit better designed offense. Not that he's like anything special, but bar was low. And you've got, Carr is like sufficient, I think, to kind of keep the offense afloat. Juwan Johnson's really cheap. And then I think Olave is pretty decently priced. So you can kind of end up with like a legit triple stack, like a concentrated offense, triple stacked with the quarterback, and it costs you like basically a second round pick in terms of real capital. A second round pick and like remembering that you took Olave is like what it costs you to stack the Saints.
I never remember that there's no Saints for so long. I never even think about it.
By the 13th round, you have to remember that Shaheed is a
and it wasn't your plan going. No one goes in saying I'm gonna stack the Saints. So, and you don't, like you said, the Patriots, and I think about the Broncos in terms of the backdoor ones. So the Saints do get lost, but I'm actually trying to, not necessarily the Carr part. It's another part of these late. You don't have to have the quarterback, right? You can do other things at the quarterback and still, like Derek Carr. You can benefit from Derek Carr just being good enough with his weapons. I don't.
Yeah. What if he scores 27 points in the final, but you have Jalen Hurts too? Jalen Hurts
to the DK Millie final, by the way. Derek Carr did last year. He led the league in 300-yard passing games, by the way. So for your DK bonuses, I believe I'm almost certain of that. He threw for a lot of yards. He didn't score a lot of fantasy points, but he threw for a lot of yards. But on DraftKings with the 300-yard bonus, and then you also have the pieces, that are catching those balls for all of those yards. It is also throw Taysom as a tight end on DraftKings and Drafters. He's a quarterback on Underdog. So he is something for me. And I don't think A.T. Perry in the last round at wide receiver is super crazy. If you prefer to take, rookie, Bub Means, they drafted Bub Means out of Pittsburgh. I just think like there's guys worth shots at their costs across the entire Saints. Kendra, I'm back on Kendra. I think he could.
Yeah, I'm back on Kendra too now. Yeah,
I'm taking a bunch of Kendra. He was running. Kamara was on a family vacation or something here in OTAs, and Kendra was running with the ones, not Jamal. So I thought that was
Jamal.
Yeah, I know, but like if Jamal is truly banished to the shadow realm,
yeah,
Kamara's not going to play every snap. There's a big role for Kendra and mega contingent value upside for Kendra, and he's cheap. Like we've talked about Ty Chandler and Algier and those guys. Like Kendra's right in that group where they're priorities. For me,
I agree. I was kind of like, well, Kendra didn't really show me last year, and is it really him? But you know what? It kind of reminds me a little bit of Zamir White last year, where like he kind of is him, and it's pretty clear it's him. But we didn't get to see it the year before, and we're kind of like, I think rightfully, like, how good is this guy? Yep. But like it would be very odd at this point, especially with what you're saying about him running with the ones now with Kamara not there. Like he's the number 2, and he was a pretty good prospect. Not like an amazing prospect, but like good. He was a good prospect.
Like pound for pound. I didn't think he was a first round pick, but like pound for pound prospect.
He was like a second round dynasty pick type of prospect. Mm-hmm. But like I thought that's what Achane was too, by the way. Like, sometimes these guys hit. So I'm back in on Kendra for sure. And I will take some Kamara. Kamara falls to the 7th round and stuff. I will take him there. Like, I don't really want to, and I'm trying to find reasons not to. But like, if you put him in my face in the 7th round enough, I'm gonna click it occasionally at least.
Kamara, Aaron Jones, these guys. It's not the archetype of player that I like, but like you said, when I've got a quarterback and 5 wide receivers and we're in the 6th round, it's like, they're good picks. I can't be biased. It's the Josh Jacobs example from 2 years ago. I cannot be biased against them because I didn't like them in the 2nd round when they're now going in the 7th round. It's just a different
bet. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also one of the ways that you beat the guys, who got out of structure because they're like, you're going to let me have Josh Jacobs pick 25? You crazy? Oh my God.
Again, by the way, we're doing that again. We did this Josh Jacobs. He was on a different team, but we did this Josh Jacobs conversation last year at the 2-3 turn where everybody said, all of those CMC, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs screenshots where people are like, I can't believe that they're letting me get this. And it's like, congratulations, dude. You took a Christian McCaffrey legendary season and turned it into an 8th place finish in your league. Amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's but we're doing it again. But Kamara, to me, right, if I'm gonna beat these teams, right, if I'm gonna say don't take Josh Jacobs in the 3rd round because you can get it later, I have to be willing to take Kamara later in the 7th. And So I am. I'm also taking Najee Harris sometimes. You gotta do.
I like Najee. I like Najee, but we're just going to leave it at that so that we don't elaborate.
Jalen Warren is my guy, but I also
too much. We may have to maybe even like next week turn this into a two-parter.
All right.
I do have to run shortly. I'm particularly interested in your answer to this question, so I'm selfishly going to hit this one before we get out of here. Do you care about maxing individual tournaments? There's more to, he elaborated on what he talked about in the Discord. If you listen to this and you would like to get a question, like I said, let's just do that. We'll turn it into a two-parter next week. We'll record the second half. If you have more questions, feel free to fire them because we're not going to get to all of them today. You can put those in either Pat or my Discord. But the question here is, of course, do you care about maxing individual tournaments? But he's saying, like, is there a difference between, there's going to be about 14 puppies on Underdog this year, right? And Chihuahuas and Pomeranians and all this different stuff. If I don't get 150 in one tournament, is that any different to you than, say, 50 in puppy 1, 50 in puppy 2, 50 in puppy 3? Are you treating it any different? Do you care more about making sure I max that one individual tournament, or are you comfortable with kind of just like getting my volume in and spreading it just so long as I get my volume in?
I would say I care about that to the extent that I really care about that specific tournament. So I want to max Best Ball Mania. I care a lot about Best Ball Mania as a tournament, and I want to get my 150 bullets in, and I want to mix them in throughout the summer so that I'm, drafting a variety of teams with a variety of information, because I don't know when the best time of the year to draft will end up being, but I think we'll probably think there was a time, and I want to have drafted then. And so that, with something like that, then the other thing to think about would be how much of this bankroll would max in this of my bankroll would max in this tournament create. Last year, the 555 was super, super top heavy. And even coming off the Best Ball Mania 3 win, I was like, I'm not maxing this. So how many do I think is reasonable to get in? And so kind of the sort of bankroll management of any of the higher stakes stuff. Obviously the 555 is very high stakes, but if you're thinking of mixing in, some of the more $50, $100, depending on where your bankroll is, I would do it based on that, based on your bankroll, not based on if you get in 10 or whatever, that's great. If that's what you want to do, I think that's great. There's I don't think pressure to be it's max or nothing. You want to be drafting plus EV teams as much as you possibly can and putting them in tournaments that you like. That's what I think. I think, if you do 50, to me, and also I would probably rather, if it was one or the other, if I'm doing 150 puppy teams over the summer, I would rather do 50, 50, and 50 in different puppies than make sure I get 150 in a single puppy. I think you're probably looking at some drafting fatigue, doing some of the same stuff too much. Just find yourself in familiar patterns a little too much, looking back on a portfolio of why did I never do that? Why did I always do that? That's much more likely to happen in the same tournament or in a small period of maybe a couple weeks, right? So whereas you let your brain breathe over the course of the summer, it might come up with some different ideas and kind of naturally diversify you. So I guess I would lean towards spreading out my bullets as a general principle, but then draft well, draft well and have fun. And I wouldn't worry about draft well, have fun, manage your bankroll, and don't feel pressure to max stuff.
Kind of the last part was exactly what I was really going to say. It is so. Obviously, I say this all the time, but I come from DFS, but I'm not a 150 max player in DFS. So one of these super pro DFS players would probably be able to tell you from a what's the optimal way to enter a DFS slate when you're a 150 maxing situation. But what I would say is it's also different in that, you do have a limited bankroll. You're not max entering every single best ball tournament. Well, I mean, some people might, but very, very few people are max entering every single best ball tournament. And it would be like in DFS if one slate played out, but that they would change pricing every day. Right, we'd get new information and we would change pricing every day. The pricing is stagnant on a DFS slate, and it is not in best ball. So I really only care about the collective summer, if that leads me to
that's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
If that leads me to maxing a certain individual tournament, because I believe, something like you said, I'm analyzing each one of these tournaments. There are certain, like, there are tournaments I'm not going to play. Their tournament, and some of them I can't physically play because the underdog launches them and they're filled 6 hours later. Like, I may want to max that one and I physically can't because it closes so fast.
Closed. Yeah.
But I really am just treating the summer as the summer. I am specifically targeting certain I mean, I'm going to max Best Ball Mania, the DraftKings Millie, the Drafters, those main tournaments. But that's not an issue because they stay open the whole summer. But I'm really trying to. You've kind of outlined. I want to draft the whole summer because I don't know what time of the summer is going to be the best time to draft. Also, we're human, and I'm going to have something like when I draft a team today, there's something on the top of my mind that I might want to do, or a player that's sticking out to me, right? I mentioned Kendre Miller. We got a news blurb yesterday. I'm like, so now when I see Kendre pop up in the queue, I'm like, yeah, I want to get Kendre now. Maybe he'll rise, right? But then I'll look back in 2 months and I'll be like, I did that thing, and
that didn't work.
Draft that guy? That was dumb. Why did I draft that guy? Not even like he got hurt or I hate him now, or just like the things that I'm thinking about now will not be the things that I'm thinking about later. And so I don't want to
go look at a board from May. And it is May, by the way, but go look at a board from the 1st of May, the 2nd of May that you were in, right? If you drafted in one of the early Best Ball Manias, just look at the board. It's very different. It's very, very different. And we haven't really learned that much.
Yeah. And so I want to be, drafting in volume, even like you said, even if you're, no matter what your bankroll is, spreading that out in a way where I think you're getting access to the whole kind of time, the news calendar, time calendar, camp, preseason. I want to have access to all of that and not focus in too much on any one individual time. Like, again, I'll adjust for tournaments that I like. I'll adjust for all that kind of stuff. But
you know what it's kind of like? It's that the summer is the slate and the tournaments are like the different, like, it's like, hey, did you max the play action on DK or did you max the slant or whatever? Mm-hmm. And it's like, nope, I didn't. I'm the engage 8 or whatever, I did the spy. I did, but I didn't do the big spy. Did you the big spy or the little spy? I did both. Oh, I only did the little, right? Like you're not like, I didn't play this week. Like, no, you played in a bunch of stuff and there's different structures and payouts and you kind of want to tailor your tactics to those a little bit. And it's also like, maybe there's some stuff that to get in that tournament, you got to register on Monday. And if you don't register Monday, you're not going to get in. And that's like kind of the time box stuff where like, but whatever, like you were busy Monday. It's not a big deal. Like there's going to be a tournament that, you have to register for on Tuesday too, and Wednesday and Thursday, and you can do those or not do those. And it's not like you're skipping anything. The slate is the whole summer.
And it's so different, like to the barbell thing, like you mentioned, and we briefly touched on before, like that whole concept was started when there was one best ball tournament the whole summer. You got 150 entries into that tournament. You had to figure out no matter how many you were drafting, like, when do I do these? Because drafting 150 teams is not an issue over 4 months or whatever for anybody. You had to figure out, with this calendar, what do I do? I want to get some now because what happens if Cam Akers gets hurt, right? What happens if this situation happens, or what happens if I happen to land on this collection of players that you can never get later, and it's the optimal way, right? You just don't know. So we had to figure out how to spend our bullets, and I think it was a totally reasonable thing to think about and thing to figure out, for everybody's strategy. It's just that's not the case anymore. Like you said, you show up to a DraftKings DFS slate on something, like there is an infinite amount of there's a tournament for everybody. There's a million of them. Unless you're one of these top DFS pros, you're not playing all of them anyway. So figure out what's the best for you. That's the same thing now, dude. There's always several tournaments available to you. And even if you only like Underdog, or you only like DraftKings, or you only like Drafters, or only like FFPC, there's always multiple tournaments available to you to draft. So you should never feel pressure about if I'm playing the puppy, I got to get 150. It's like, no, take your whole summer, figure out your plan of attack for all of that. And maybe you do really like this puppy, or you really like this time pocket. That's how you want to draft, go for it. But there shouldn't be any change in your strategy around that. Like one way is optimal and one way is suboptimal.
I didn't max the DK $10 milli last year when like
What
even my accountant was
Did you
like,
even win Best Ball Mania or something? Like what is
yeah,
going on?
like when like, you know, the professionals in my life are like, so okay, so it's called best ball. You play that hard, buddy. Like, okay, I will. Don't worry. But I didn't max the $10 milli because you know what? DraftKings is kind of a pain in the ass to draft on, and I probably got an 109. You know, I got sick of it. I got sick of it, and I did instead of that, I did. Now I was still like drafting, but I did some of the underdog, smaller stuff like that they released late, like the Big Dog 3. But I finished second I won one of those it was like really small, and then I finished third in another. And so like that was I like those. Like I think those types of contests you're much more like likely to realize your edge in those tournaments. But I like didn't max the $10 milli, which I like. If you had asked me in May, like, will you do this? Like, oh yeah, like it would be kind of stupid for me not to because that gets paid out in 2024, tax liability, whatever, but plus it's
it's the softest.
It's the softest tournament. It's sort of a no-brainer. You check it off. Like, obviously you're going to do that one. I didn't get to it and I don't really care. Like it didn't, and whatever. I just didn't like, I got 109 in before my time got too tight. And then I did other stuff. Like it just doesn't, I don't think it's really that important. What's important is you're drafting good teams, draft good teams. Put yourself in the position to draft good teams, and don't put yourself in the position to draft bad teams for the sake of volume.
The perfect thing to end on, as I said, small pivot deviation. We'll run it back next week. If you're listening to this, you can drop a comment if you'd like to ask a question. If you don't want to pop in the Discord and answer your question, leave a comment on this video on either Pat or I's channel. We'll monitor that. We'll monitor the Discord and double back for the questions that we did not get to next week in part 2 of the mailbag here on Legendary Sickos. If you're watching this, enjoy the rest of your weekend. That's the show. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.